Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to another Motivational Monday on Justin and the Food Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host, and today I have with me again Mark Shortt of the Mark Explains podcast.
What's up, everyone, and what's up, Justin?
How are you? I thought we did so well last week. We might as well do another one.
We stumbled through that, and it turned out really well.
Yeah, but we were just trying to see what happens, and it turned out.
Yeah, I'm really glad to be on. Thank you so much. Again, I'm Mark Shortt. I host the podcast Mark Explains the Universe, and you can find it on iTunes and Podbean, along with Justin's incredible podcast, the one that you're listening to, Justin and the Food Entrepreneurs. It's on like every platform of podcasting available in the universe, basically.
Yeah, I don't do anything half-assed. I haven't found much success in it unless I put my whole self into it, my whole heart, my whole soul, as we talked a little bit about last week.
A little bit, yep. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about love, and we're going to talk about loving oneself, and I believe you're about to do an episode on that as well on your show.
I am. I think it's going to either release here in a few days or in a week in a few days, just depends on how quickly I can turn it around. But how exactly, because this is Motivational Monday, so how does love play into motivation?
Well, you know how I love using quotes from famous individuals. So today I'm going to use Lucille Ball, who, of those of you in the audience who might not know who she is, she's I Love Lucy, which was quite a hit show. I don't know if you would call it a sitcom, but maybe.
Maybe.
And it was quite a brilliant show about Lucille Ball, and she's quite an actress. But her quote is, "Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line." You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about loving oneself and what it means in being an entrepreneur and a food entrepreneur, in my opinion. And Mark's here, and so it's a good crossover for our shows because both of us kind of stumbled upon this at the same time. So we thought we'd do another episode together and see where it takes us. Yeah, I know, it only gets better. And so, I mean, for loving oneself, that was hard for me, honestly. That took me a long time to love myself enough where other people could love me. I didn't realize, as a kid, I was so hard on myself. I was harder on myself than most people. I really took things personally, and I was sensitive, and I really cared about what other people thought about me.
Well, actually, I'll give a little bit of a spoiler for those that might want to listen to the podcast that I'm going to come out. It's just talking about loving yourself because it's so important. How are we supposed to be able to show love and be love in this world if it doesn't start within you? And I'll give a little bit of a spoiler. I'm going to start the podcast out by telling a little story about me. I was raised religious in some capacities, and I remember there was a point later on in my life, I must have been 24 or 25 years old, and I was down in Southwest Florida, and I was at it was some kind of a religious retreat of sorts, and I remember I was standing at the back of the room. I always had a hard time paying attention to those things, but I always went for the girls because why not? And I remember I was standing and I looked up, and the guy came on, the speaker man came on, and he said there are two laws that Jesus put into place, and he said to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, I've heard those, everyone's heard those. And he said, we're not going to talk about the first one, we're going to talk about the second one, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. And he said, but a lot of you can't love your neighbors because you don't love yourself. And I remember it vividly like a punch in the gut. It was like he was talking right to me, and I remember thinking, nope, I'm not ready to hear this, because he was pulling such dark demons that I had hidden for so long that I did not love myself. And that was that was a lot of baggage that I carried, and my inability to love others started with my inability to love myself.
Yeah, I think that actually goes back to last week's episode as well, and the fear of loving oneself. I mean, because we're afraid of what we're afraid of, the judgment of ourselves and the things we don't like about ourselves, for sure. And I would actually love to see starry-eyed Mark at 25 years old up there looking out at the crowd and having an epiphany, a moment of clarity, if you will.
Oh, man. Well, I shut down. I don't remember anything else about the night. I don't remember anything. All I remember is that moment and then thinking, nope, and I checked out and I didn't even listen to what he had to say.
I was probably in my early 30s, probably around the age of 30, and I would say, actually, ironically, it was my soccer number for a long time. I was probably about 33 years old before I really got the concept. So you were a little younger than I was. So not too long ago, but where the whole concept of loving yourself really came around, because I think I tried to love other people and give other people so much because I didn't love myself. I felt if they loved me, I would feel loved myself or feel that I love myself. But what really happened is once I learned to love myself, my whole world opened up. And I think you attract a lot more people by loving yourself and being a good giving person and, and giving out the love. And you mentioned Jesus a little bit. And while we're not a religious show, we are entrepreneurs and we do get motivation and guidance another way. But to me, that's what we're supposed to do as human beings, is love one another and be forgiving and try to move forward, as we talked about last week. And in moving forward, it shows love.
Yeah, I think what we need to do, I think the whole purpose of this Motivational Monday is self-examination. If you're driving right now, or maybe you're listening at work, to take a moment and to look in, to have self-inflection, to kind of see the parts of your life that you don't necessarily love, maybe the parts of your past that you don't necessarily love, and to pull those into light, because that's how we grow, that's how we heal, that's how we move forward, is to pull the ugly parts, to pull the nasty parts into light, so that way they don't hide anymore. So that way you don't make them into something bigger or something greater than they really are. Because, the monster that's hiding in the dark is probably small, but he sounds big and can really, really put fear, to hit back on last week, back into your life in ways that you don't even want to face it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, looking inside and taking some time to do that, and really, it's hard, right? There are things we don't like about ourselves, for sure. And whether it's physical or emotional or whatever it is, we all have them. And, loving yourself or giving yourself a hug, or sometimes just asking someone for a hug. I think I'm a big hugger, just so everyone knows. I hug a lot. I give everyone hugs.
Yes, he does.
I don't know, because I need them sometimes, because it makes me feel good. But two, because I know how other people need them, and when it's a good thing, and we should give more hugs. I don't know why we handshake so much. It seems so informal. If I could change one thing about humanity, it's that we just hug each other. Actually, if it came down to it, and loving oneself is my being vulnerable enough to hug someone. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm a man, right? I'm going to give, people like, oh, that's a little bit wimpy. I've heard people say, and shake hands, and it's a manly thing to do. Guess what? I'm a big teddy bear. I'm going to hug the shit out of you. But anyway, so you got to hug yourself a little bit, but loving yourself is hard. It's not an easy thing to do, because we're often our own worst enemies, and we're critical. And in business, we're really hard on ourselves, and we don't realize that sharing those vulnerabilities and the things we dislike about ourselves with other people actually helps us love ourselves, but it also helps the people around us.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned business, because we have this false dichotomy that we create in our minds between life and business, between work and play, in a sense, between what you do at home and what you do at work. We create that dichotomy in our minds because, like, if I go to work, I have to be this one person, I have to be this one thing. But when I come home, I can be this other thing. So I can be loving and soft and strong at home, but when I'm at work, I need to be hard and rigid, and I cannot bend, otherwise I'll break, and you don't want to see me break. But that dichotomy is creating within you these different people. And I think the self-love that we're talking about starts by bridging the gap and realizing that dichotomy is false, that divide between who you are at work and who you are at home is not a real thing. You need to become soft and also strong, to have a soft heart but a strong core in who you are in every aspect of life. Otherwise, when you're done working, when you're done business at your place of business, you're going to realize these people aren't even friends. They're just colleagues that listen to you, maybe because you were in charge. I know you talked a little bit about that when you were on our show, about an individual that when he retired and he had no friends because they listened to who he was, but they didn't respect or love him. Don't create the divide. Pull that in and begin to love yourself at work and begin to love yourself at home and become that same consistent person all the way through.
I agree with that 100%. And it's crazy. We do that. We do divide our life into work and business and home, and we spend more time with the people we work with probably than anyone else, other than maybe our wife and kids, or significant other and kids, I should say. And that's incredible. I mean, something that I've started doing at work is I took the hug theory into my work. I hug people. I try to do a better job, and in food that's a little hard because some of the people have food all over them, but whatever, screw it, right?
I have food all over
me no
matter what. I was
a kid that played in the mud. I'm like not even kidding. I ate dirt for sure. But the thing is how do we actually show love to people? Because it is more productive when we aren't ruling with anger or demand or that whole thing. If we come from a point of love and give love to people, we are more successful leaders. I think leadership through love is way better than not. I have to say it, in my opinion, and from what I've seen and read and things like that when people love the people that they lead and they love truly, we talked about Martin Luther King in the first episode, but that goes way farther and leaves a way longer impression on people and on society and culture than the opposite, which is leading by iron fist and not by love, by fear, which we talked about last week. Yeah. We don't want people to be fearful. If they're being afraid, they're doing it because they have to, not because they want to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that this is this goes all the way back, like to pull the love or to pull the self-love into light, to pull those things that you don't love into the light can be a really challenging, really, really tough thing. And you even mentioned Martin Luther King in the first episode. Well, we're going to pull him into this Motivational Monday because he said the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. And I think that beginning to love yourself can be a really challenging thing because we are brought in a society where self-image is promoted over self-love, and where ultimately how you treat people is secondary to the image that you show on social media. And these are the things that we need to begin to reduce because everything starts with love. The whole reason why we're here, the whole reason why we're on this earth is not to be successful in business, but to show love. And if success through business and success through life happens, then we now get to carry that love into those things. But if you are successful, if you have created this empire, but you die without love, honestly, you've died without anything.
No, I agree. And I want to talk about that social media thing a little bit, and self-love, and actually what we have. Social media is this weird thing that has kind of corrupted this image, I feel like. Maybe it's always been corrupt. I don't know. I haven't lived long enough to truly figure it out. But I think it's interesting when we post so many pictures of ourselves on there and we are really looking for likes. And it's a heart, which is interesting because a heart can represent love. And everyone likes something or loves something or whatever, and we're totally loving ourselves based on how many likes we get if we do a photo on there. And I'm like, how about being yourself? How about getting real love? And that's, you're trying to get love from other people and trying to get love by doing those things, and that's not loving oneself. That's really just trying to fill a void and having other people fill a void of loving you or getting as many likes as you can on social media because it rewards you. But it doesn't last forever. And it's unfortunate. I think that, if it's true to you and it's something you do and you believe in and you're making a business out of it, but you love yourself and have the confidence in yourself to do it, that's one thing. But doing it to get likes or doing it, you're selling yourself short.
Yeah, well, I mean, every time, so studies have been done about this, and every time, let's say you were to go to a casino and gamble, when you win, you get a release of dopamine in your brain, and it feels good. That feeling of winning, the feeling of when you're risking something and you win, that feeling of dopamine release in your brain is an actual hormone release. That's why it feels so good. It's also, it happens at a few different times in life, but when you post a picture online and you get a lot of response, you also get a dopamine response in that. It's the same release. So your body is literally congratulating you for the validation of others, but it's so cheap and so inexpensive. And we hold it so high. We hold that double click, on Instagram. We hold that so high when in reality, the things that matter are not the validation from others, but how we are validating others.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I think where it goes wrong is we need to train ourselves that it feels good to love ourselves. That same response. I don't know how to trigger a dopamine response to love myself, but there's probably interesting ways we probably shouldn't get into on this podcast. But the thing is how do we do that, love ourselves, but then also love other people that work for us or in the entrepreneur world? How do we help people to get a similar response? And then how do we use our own social media and our own accounts to remain true to ourselves? I think we have a lot of people on this show that are good people, and they are loving the people that work for them, and they're gracious and they're humble, and they love the people that have helped them. And we've been fortunate with that on the show so far, that we really have good people that are loving. But I think loving oneself and then helping the people around us love themselves also, and teaching them self-love, that's a big deal. And, if it comes down to being an entrepreneur and profit, I guarantee you're going to have better employees, and you're going to have better friendships at the office, and you're going to feel more rewarded than not doing those things. If loving and giving back and helping the people around you and mentoring people, like, that's a real thing, and loving yourself is hugely important in all that, because you can't teach someone to love themselves or better themselves if you don't love yourself first.
You have to start with yourself. That's where all of the momentum, that's where all of the courage, that's where all of your power comes from, is from first starting with yourself. Like, I can't lead you somewhere I've never been. I can't take you through a trail and know it by heart if I've never been through that. I can't love you if I haven't first loved myself.
And there's the authenticity also, right?
Well, and that's scary. And that plays back into what we talked about last week, because if I can begin to love myself and show vulnerability, that's a scary trait, because, like, if you're going to see me for who I am. Yeah. And I, in a lot of senses, that's a scary thought, because then you're going to see my flaws, you're going to see my past, you're going to see my baggage, you're going to see the way I've treated others. That's scary. And
we've had some people on the podcast admit, I go back to Rusty Bowers admitting, that he was a jerk as a boss. And he wasn't coming from a loving position. He was coming from the position that we see in all the food TV shows, that harshness and ruling with an iron fist is how you should run your kitchen, and especially as a restaurateur. And I just think it doesn't go very far. And he learned the lesson after years of it. We don't have to wait years to love ourselves. And being a jerk, you're not going to love yourself. You're going to be like, I'm a jerk. And whether you admit it or not, or you think you're doing the right thing, or you think people respect you, they're respecting you out of fear, not out of... And they're respecting you not in the way that respect should truly be given.
Well, and to even talk about that, I think that there's a time and a place to use a hammer.
Yep.
To run a kitchen with an iron fist, I think would probably be effective in some capacities, but how are people going to leave there? Because really, the mark you make is not how you currently run something, it's how you leave people.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't have a tool belt with many tools, if you just have a hammer, you'll probably get a lot of work done, but you'll probably leave a lot of collateral damage also.
Yeah, and I think that's important as well. I mean, how do we grow people? I think that's loving. I mean, we talked about growing forward a little bit on a couple episodes now. But growing forward also means that we want to grow people because we love our neighbor, like we started off the episode with. Like loving them as employees and respecting them, also helps them respect you, but it also allows you to put down walls and allows them to put down walls so they can be more open with you about the things that your business needs to be doing to be successful. And that's really, I mean, who else knows the operation other than the people that are doing it every day? I mean, you need that open communication and you need that human connection. And love, 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 as the Beatles say, it's true. I mean, it all comes from, all you need is love. And
I think this is the third time we've mentioned the Beatles.
I know, the Beatles keep popping up on the podcast.
We're going to use them as outro music one of these times.
I know, we're going to get a cease and desist in the mail for using their name pretty soon. But it's, but the thing is it's true, right? I mean, how do we use it for the betterment of each other? I mean, we don't get very long on this planet. Life flies by. I mean, life keeps going faster and faster the more years you live, I feel like, even though time is somewhat
relative.
Yeah, relative. It's it becomes something that we're trying to hold on to, and if we don't give back, we really don't leave anything. We're not remembered for how bad we treated people. People will remember that he was a jerk for sure, but more people will remember if I'm loving and caring than not.
So what do we do? Here we are at Motivational Monday. What do we do to help people become motivated through love? Because I think we kind of hit it a little bit. It's not what you're getting done, it's how you leave people. So like what would you say? How would you motivate people through love?
Well, for me, hugging's one. Loving and hugging.
Loving and hugging.
As Biggie Smalls says. And but really, the thing that we need to do, I think, as human beings is really identify the things we don't love about ourselves and sort of debunk them. And
scary.
It's a scary thing, and most people really... And it's not only that, you can talk about someone it's hard to be vulnerable with your significant others or friends, but sometimes just admitting it and saying it out loud helps. And people that are religious and stuff, they can also turn it over to a higher power or whatever, or God, and sort of just admit it to him. I think that helps. Just admitting it and being willing to talk about it, I think, is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because sharing it is a service to people. Because there's a lot of people out there that go through a lot of similar things that don't love things about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a 3-foot by 5-foot cork board on my wall at home, and I post these little 3 by 5 cards on it that have a bunch of sayings on it. And one of the sayings that's been up there forever says, "Show me the darkest parts of your heart so I know where to begin." And that wasn't at someone else. That was actually at myself. I was asking myself to show me the darkest parts of my heart so I can know where to begin. And I think that goes into exactly what you're saying, to pull the dark places of your life into the light so that way you can name them. And so that way they cannot be more than they really are.
Yeah. And I actually, now that I've thought about it a little bit, the answer to my question is actually pretty simple. And it's a crazy one, because I think food being one of the most basic things we need as human beings for survival, and loving oneself is also loving one's body. And so there's the most basic things we can do is feed ourselves properly. And I don't want to go down that whole tangent, and that's not saying we shouldn't enjoy our food. I just ate a bunch of wings, but
I also ate a bunch. Why don't we do another Motivational Monday and talk about how food plays into our everyday life.
Yeah, I think let's do that next episode. I think we'll get back on here and do it again. You guys are going to be hearing a lot of us, but really, I think we are better leaders. Like for me, loving oneself means I sing out of tune. I sing songs, I belt them out. Deborah always tells me Justin's the proudest singer there is that's out of tune. And I suck at singing. I mean, I'm a full suckage. And I was self-conscious about it for a while, but now I'm like, whatever, I don't care. I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
Or I dance around on the floor in the house. Like, that brings me a lot of joy, but it was embarrassing for a while. And I didn't like it about myself, and I was afraid to do it. And then on another note, growing up, I always had big ears and a big nose. Dumbo was something people called me a lot. And I used soccer to really excel and used it as my fuel to excel in soccer and try to prove everyone how great I was through soccer. But it didn't mean I began to not love my nose or my ears about myself. And I don't know, interestingly, over time, I became more accepting of it. Some of it's maturity, but some of it is just you're stuck with it.
Yeah.
So you better love it, and you're stuck with yourself. So you better get to learn how to love yourself. So in business, I hear people, like it's easy. People really display their insecurities right up front. They don't even know you're doing it. I don't even know I'm doing it, but it's in my words, it's in my actions. And being a leader and an entrepreneur, if you can identify those things, and you don't have to point it out to embarrass someone, don't get me wrong, but if you can know that there's ways to help them or be open with people. And people always talk about open door policies, come in and talk to me whenever you want. Well, you know what? What it really should be is an open your heart policy.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to judge you as a boss, and I'm not going to fire you. It needs to be a safe place. And so loving oneself, I think, is creating your own safe place inside yourself where you can be critical of yourself, but also work through that criticism. 2 is having people around you where it's safe to talk about it. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are actually starting this movement, that they have small groups of friends where they're just blatantly honest and critical, or they run business ideas through. And people are honest with them, and they're honest in return, and it's a safe place for them.
I've never heard of that.
So
I would love to start a small group where we are just super honest, and then record that and make a podcast out of it.
I mean, it would be vulnerable.
It would be so scary.
Yeah, it would be.
But it would be in those moments that would challenge us.
Yeah. I think for sure. And how are we as human beings? I mean, we're afraid of failure. So, but what is it that we're afraid of? Is it because we're afraid of someone viewing us badly? What is it that we're afraid of? Like we talked about in the last podcast, but then what are we afraid of that if someone else finds out about us, they may not love about us, therefore we don't love it about ourselves? There's a lot of that. I'm afraid to love myself for whatever reason, because I'm afraid I'll expose myself. I don't know, but it's definitely going to be a running topic. So as entrepreneurs, I think we need to love ourselves first if we're going to lead. And we need to lead from a position of love. And we need to make safe environments for the people around us to love themselves. And it needs to be safe for them to come to us. And we talked about it a little bit in the CEO, a couple episodes, your episode, and then now, is that I need to be more than a manager. I need to be more than a leader. I need to be more than a boss or a coworker. I need to actually put myself out there and love the people around me, because really we're with them all the time, at least 40 hours a week.
Yep.
In most cases. So why not better the lives of the people around us? Why try to hurt people? Why try to be down on people because we don't love ourselves? I think a lot of people hurt people or are negative people when they don't love themselves. I think that's what comes out of it.
Yep, absolutely. And I think one of the scariest things for me, and one of the hardest things for me on why I didn't love myself for so long, is because I didn't think I was enough. And if I'm not enough, then you won't love me. And if I can't love me and I'm not enough, then there's no way that this world would love me. And pulling that into light and realizing I didn't ask to be born. You didn't ask to be born. We're all here by chance. We are all have the same worth and the same value. And to start by pulling those things into the light and beginning to love yourself, that's what creates that momentum in order to love others.
I agree 100%. And you can't give anything away if you're not living it yourself.
You can't.
I mean, total circle back to Martin Luther King. Like, you got to live by the ideals you're asking for other people, for sure. And, you know, we went a little long on this episode, longer than I wanted, but I do want to really touch upon love as a general concept. I think we're probably going to have to do another episode here in the future, because it's just way bigger of a topic than I ever thought it was. So being motivated by love, I think, is what we want to end with. And so for me, if I come from a loving position every day, you know, I'm a better person, but I also have the ability to self-reflect about why I do some of the things I do. So I know if Deborah and I have a disagreement and it's me who's caused the disagreement, which, you know, probably 7 out of 10 times is me, it's usually because something else is bothering me, or I'm not loving something about myself, and I have something going on internally, and it just comes out on her. Or the people around me, or my parents, or my coworkers, or whatever. So when we start to react negatively or not from a loving position, you know, it's okay to call a timeout and go back into our office, or take like 5 minutes and really self-reflect and not be righteous. That we have, like, it's usually we have a part in all of it, and usually it comes down to what are we not loving about ourselves that we're taking out on someone, or what is the insecurity about myself that this is causing, or what fear is it causing, to tie it back to last week's episode. And when we react because of those things, we're not doing anyone any service. We're really not doing ourselves any service, because if I react poorly and I'm going a tirade and I'm an asshole, I feel even worse about myself. Like, that does, and I love myself even less, so why even put ourselves in that position? Yeah. So I guess, you know, here's another concept that it just occurred to me. I need to practice this in my own life, is why not come from a place of love? Because if I don't, I just create more reasons not to love myself, you know? And I need to get over those things and realize I'm human and I make mistakes. So that's part of loving yourself. And failure is part of life. And so loving ourselves for taking a chance is probably the thing that we need to really do. Love ourselves for our failures. Love ourselves for taking those risks. Love ourselves for facing fear. Love ourselves for continuing to fail, but knowing that we're doing it for a purpose. And really love ourselves by loving other people. You know, I heard this great thing the other day, and I've heard it a couple of times now, is a guy was upset because I wanted to give money to someone on the side of the road. And I'm like, I'm going to give money to anyone on the side of the road I want. He's like, well, you don't know what he's going to do with it. And what if he uses it to get drunk and whatever? But that's not my problem. My problem is, am I keeping my side of the street clean? Am I loving the people around me in the best way possible? He's in need. What he does with that dollar, I don't know. But it may be the 1 out of 100 person I give the dollar to actually will maybe do something good with it. I'm hoping it's way higher than that. But hey, if I can keep them healthy, or I can keep them, you know, whatever it is, the chances, and help, you know, it's okay. And I want to do it not because I want anything in return. I'm not expecting anything from him. I'm just doing the right thing and loving other people, no matter what their circumstances.
Well, I think that's a really important key to remember, is me giving someone money. It may change their life a little bit, but it changes me. You know, it makes the world a better place because I'm a better person. And that's not my goal, but like, if we can get a lot of people on board, if we can get a lot of people to start giving, both sides of the street becomes better, because the people that give the money also, it changes them. It changes the giver as much as it does. I mean, to receive something is great. I love my birthday because everyone's giving me things, but I almost love, like, someone else, like I have a significant other, I almost love her birthday more because I get to give. Like, that changes me. To give is to love yourself. Yeah,
I love that actually also. I love people's birthdays because I get to give to them. My birthday, my own birthday is a little bit harder, but I love giving. So I find a lot of love in it. Go ahead.
No, I think one last things that we need to remember is the motivation. Like we talked about the motivation of fear last week, and I think it's important to remember. Like if you're thinking about a child, in order to get a child to do something, you can use a couple of things, and typically fear is the greatest motivator in that. If you don't do this, you're going to get disciplined. The second greatest motivator in life, and arguably flopped with fear, is money. Like I can get somebody to do something that they are terrified of if I can pay them enough money. But those are not sustainable motivators. I can get somebody to do something once or for a little while, but the thing about love is if you can begin to utilize love as a motivation, that is sustainable motivation, because you begin to see the change in you and you begin to see the change in others, and all of a sudden that creates this perpetual motion inside of you to continue to do those things, and then you end up with so much change within yourself, so much love within yourself, and it's just this cycle that goes into everyone.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I think it really comes down to, if you look at it, loving oneself, then you don't have to demand other people's love. I think a lot of people use fear and money to get people to do things for them because they're demanding love. They're forcing it. I want someone to want to love me. Mm-hmm. I think that's very, very, very important, is I want it to be earned. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise it feels like shit, for lack of a better term. It's a big turd.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. It's not going to last me a lifetime, that's for sure. And when people do things out of fear, that only lasts so long before they get resentful.
Yeah.
And resentment towards you is not a way to lead anyone.
No.
And so with that being said, I do want to talk more about love and food and loving oneself, and I think we need to get into it. But if I could tell everyone to do one thing today, it would be hug someone.
Mm-hmm. Come hug me. Come hug Justin. We'll hug you back.
Yeah, well, I love hugging. And people are probably thinking I'm the weird hugger. But I do think hugging is very important. It shows love and closeness, and it drops walls.
Yeah.
And it opens up vulnerability and makes places safe and for people to discuss things. I also think hug someone. I also think open up to someone about something you don't love about yourself. I think whoever hears this, just take one thing today that you don't love about yourself and talk to someone about it. Admitting it out loud, it's like a huge relief off your shoulders. Mm-hmm. And the inspiration you get from it, you might get addicted for it. I wouldn't say dump all of your not loving things on someone, but start off with one thing. And obviously you have to admit it to yourself first. And that's hard, but saying it out loud, I do it a lot. I have a very safe environment to talk about it with Deborah, and I talk about things I don't love about myself a lot, which has given me huge growth in my life since Deborah and I have been together. And, it's helped me be vulnerable with my family and employees and people that work with me and coworkers in a way that I'm not afraid to put myself out there anymore. And it goes back to the fear things. The more we love ourselves, the less fear we have.
That's really good. Yeah, I like that.
So that being said, thanks, Mark, for joining us again.
For the longest Motivational Monday ever, but arguably the best.
Today was a marathon, not a sprint of motivation.
But hopefully this type of motivation can get the ball rolling slowly so that way it can continue to roll versus getting it rolled fast, but then stopping.
Yeah, so Mark's voice on podcast is awesome, by the way. Can everyone just give Mark a podcast hug? We're going to hashtag podcast hugs. We're building them up. Hashtag growing forward. Hashtag
Fuff.
fuck you fear.
Fuff.
Fuff. And hashtag podcast hug.
Podcast hug. That's the best one there is right there.
And so tell us again how everyone can find you in the podcast world and what your show is and on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, so my podcast is basically my journey, my story of through post-evangelical life, and now I'm just kind of stumbling through. I find people and we talk and have good conversations and just talk about the things we struggle with and the things that have changed our lives. And like we did one a couple weeks back on Earth, Home, Orbital Perspective, because I am a geoscientist by trade. And but I mean, a lot is just on experience that we've had. You can find it on Podbean, mark.explains.podbean, or iTunes, or iHeartRadio, and all the platforms. And just go to Instagram and just start scrolling. You'll see either me or Justin on there. We share each other's everything, and it's hysterical.
Well, not everything, but...
Well, there's limits.
There's limits.
Some is for Deborah.
But seriously, check out the podcast. And I know probably you heard Mark mention the universe and science, and you're picturing glasses and a pocket protector. But I promise you that's not happening. But seriously, I want everyone to tune into all the shows. I think the message that's going on here is amazing. I think we're really on to something, and people helping each other. And
that's what it's all about.
Everyone have a great Monday. Thank you again, Mark, for being on the show. And I'm Justin Bizzarro. You can contact me at justin.bizzarro@gmail.com. That's Bizzarro. And I'm Justin, and the Food Entrepreneurs podcast host. And today we have our guest host again, Mark. Thank you for the second time. I'm a very gracious person, and I have lots of gratitude because just so everyone knows, I wouldn't even have a podcast if it wasn't for Mark helping me out. So I'll make sure I thank him at the beginning of the next one to make sure how much he knows and that I'm giving love to him as well.
Oh, well, you're doing good things, man, and it's an honor to be here.
I know I could keep talking forever. I have this problem. I can't shut up. And so thank you, everyone, for listening in, and have a great Monday.